Hello, my name's Dave and this is Love Wire. Now I'm sorry we seem to be a little late to the lockdown arts and crafts party, but at least we're here now. So the idea is to put together a few videos of items that you can make out of wire at home. We're going to be having available kits of the wire that you can buy from our website, and we'll talk you through every little bit as we go along. So I thought we'd start off today with one of our populars from the past, and that is the toasting fork. These, apart from being very decorative, were very practical as well, because you can use it for your barbecue or your campfire. If you get the old marshmallows out, they'll also do muffins, crumpets and toast, you name it. So very simple. They only use two different sorts of wire, and they're quite sort of, you can just decorate them the way that you want to. So we'll be, as I say, we'll be having all the different various wires that you need available to make them in the kits. So what you're going to do first of all is to prepare your wire. Okay, this wire that we use is called mild iron. It's a annealed wire. It's very cheap wire, but very bendy. And it does go rusty a bit quick, but actually for what we do, that can be quite useful in certain situations. It's very easy to stop it going rusty, and we can show you that later on, sometimes using just sort of olive oil, but we'll talk about that later. So this is 2mm. So first of all, what I'm going to do, and you can see it's a big roll. When you buy this stuff from the factories, normally they come in big large kilogram or more rolls. So you either get like that, or with the thinner stuff you'll get them on a reel like this. They always get broken as well. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to take two pieces which are going to be 42 inches each. Alright, so 42 inches each we're going to take off here. So okay, now we've cut our two pieces of 2mm wire round about 42 inches each, but we can just even them up later on anyway. Now what we've got to do is to prepare the wire. Obviously that's not going to make a toasting fork where you can see it's just so bent round. So we're going to straighten the wire, and while we're straightening it, we're actually going to harden it. We're actually going to make it much stiffer, which, if you can imagine, is what you need for toasting fork tongs. You don't want them bending all over the place. Now this is the only procedure which is a bit iffy. Alright, now I'll tell you why, because what we have to do is we have to fix one end of the wire in a vise, and then the other end into, I'm going to call it electric screwdriver, I'm certainly not calling it a drill, and we're going to twist the wire. Now I'm using a fairly cheap, this is a Draper electric screwdriver. It's not very powerful, it's quite slow, so this is pretty useful for what we need. You can imagine if you used a proper drill and things got out of control and the thing came out at the end and you got a piece of wire spinning around at goodness knows how many revs a minute, that's going to be pretty dangerous stuff. Alright, so what we're going to do is to fix one end in the vise. You can also use mole grips if you've got a willing helper, and then I'm just going to give about 5 seconds spin with the drill just to straighten these wires up, and it's amazing when you can see it's looking like that, and it will go dead straight when I've finished. We will give you the option, I will do in the kit, prepare this for you in advance, so you don't have to, if you're feeling a bit iffy about doing anything you think it could be a bit dangerous, then we'll do it for you. So that is an option. Okay, so let's check this one out. So we're going to put one end in the vise, make sure it's clamped clearly. I'm putting eye safe, I'm putting goggles on just in case there's a little problem, and then the other end is going to be fixed quite firmly in the chuck. There we go. See, it's that weak that I can actually hold it with my hand. So now we'll pull it up. We're not putting much pressure on this at all. We're just doing enough just to straighten it a little bit. And then let's turn it on. And I can actually see all the lumps in this being taken out. Yeah. Which actually you can see this wire is quite tough, so that the drill's having a hard time of it. Okay, so we've done that. So I know it's probably a bit more than 5. It's because the drill's actually running a lot slower. It's actually getting on a bit now, this drill. But you can see now just how straight it ends up. Wow. So you can see that. It's dead straight all the way down. Okay, just a little bit on the end, but that's no problem because we'll be dealing with that later on. So that's that one. So I've just got to do the other one now. Right, okay, that's the second one done. Now if you're doing these in the vise, do make a point of just supporting the wire. Don't let it hang down, it's going to bend down again, so it just needs supporting. Now you probably notice it's very dirty now. The actual process of spinning the thing round has actually just cracked through the upper layer of this annealing process, and that stuff is just going to be coming off in your hands. So it's probably not a bad idea that you keep like a cloth with like a bit of paraffin or WD-40 or something like that handy, just so you can wipe things down, so it keeps them cleaner, and it just makes it easier to work with. The thing that you notice with the stuff, especially rust that you get off wire, is that you'll find that your hands, your skin dries up quite a lot at the end of the day after you've been working with it. So it's probably a very good idea, I often use it, to use a decent hand cream, moisturiser, what have you, just to try and put a bit more moisture back into your hands again, really, at the end of the day. Okay, so we've got our 2 pieces of wire. So what we're going to do now is, we're just going to see how they are lengthwise. It's not going to make a big deal. Right, okay, I've got a little bit out on those 2. So let's just trim them up. They're going to need trimming again later on. Whoops, there we go. That's another thing to watch out for. When you clip the ends of pieces of wire, there is some energy around there. So probably a good idea, I didn't because there's no one else in it, to put your hand over the end, so that when the little bit comes off the end when you cut it, it doesn't fly over, because it is a bit of a hazard if you've got other people in the area. Okay, right, now the next clever thing is to actually, we're going to bend this thing in half. And here's a sort of clever bit, because you think, right, where is the middle of it? Well, luckily we could do this without any measurements. And the nice thing about working with wire sometimes and creating these things is you sometimes don't need measurements. So I'm going to get the 2 ends of it, one end there, and I'm going to bring those ends together, okay, until they're just touching, just at the bottom there. I don't know if you can see that there. They're just, I've got them together there. So now I've got the 2 ends there. At the other end, I'm just going to put my finger through and just bend, pull it really, and then I can put a couple of fingers each side, and I've found the middle of my wire. Alright, I've found the middle of this. Now it's almost like a bend, so we're going to get hold of this and just squeeze it down, just so it now, you can probably see it now crosses over there. Let's see how it goes there. So you've got a piece there, so it looks like, almost looks like, in fact this is, I explored this, it's almost like a fish. Discovered that once. So now we're going to do the same thing with the other piece. So same thing again, get hold of each end, bring it together, hold the 2 ends together so you've got the right length, then put your finger up to the top where the middle part is, like that, pull it a little bit while you're still holding down here, so you've kind of got now the centre part. Right. If it's not exactly central, don't worry, because there'll be a process of just adjusting later on, and then you squeeze the 2 together. So now you can see you've kind of got a bit of a handle shape there already, and that's what we're going to be using there. So now, as I said before, if you've got a problem using a drill, I mean, you can do what we did just with a pair of pliers, spin it around, but it'll take all day. If you are not happy about using an electric screwdriver, and I say, for goodness sake, do not use like a drill that you plug into the mains anyway. What you'd need is something that will just operate at a very, very slow speed. Alright, if you're not happy doing that, then we will have an arrangement on the website where you can buy a kit, and what I'll do is to prepare this wire so it's at this stage. Alright, so we can fairly easily pack that and send those to you, so you don't have to go through that bit if you're a bit concerned about any hazards. So that will help you out. Okay, so now we've got both of these pieces now bent up. Now what we need to do is to put them together, but make sure that we've got the wires going in the right direction. Now if you can see this, if I come dead close, can you see that the wire that's going this way is in front? Let me put this down there. There we go. So the wire that's going this way is in front, as you look at it, as the wire that's going that way. Yeah, can you see that? For pull them apart, but you can see. Okay, now what you want to do is to make sure with the other one it's doing the same thing. If it's not, it's fairly easy just to get hold of, pull them apart like that, and just make sure you've got them the right way. Okay, so you're both, there we go, you want both in the same direction. Then what you're going to do is you're going to put the two pieces of wire together. Alright, so you've got, now I've got the two bits of wire that go to my left in front, that's towards you, of the two bits of wire going to my right. I'm sure I'm making that sound much more complicated than it really needs to be, but if I can show you a bit closer up, yeah, so we can see like that, that's going like that. So they're both, there's two the same on the top, two the same on the bottom. Okay, it's as simple as that. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fix that handle in place. So we have to work out whereabouts we want the handle to be, or how big I should say. Okay, so you can adjust that, so we can have one like that, we can have it a little bit smaller, yeah, and you're trying to make sure that the two pieces of wire here, you try to make sure you keep together. Okay, alright, so when you've just decided on that, now what we need to do is to do some binding, so we can actually bind the pieces together. And for that I'm going to need a different thickness of wire. I'm going to need a much thinner piece, so we're going to use 1.6 for this. Okay, right, so now we've got our toasting fork as it is at the moment on the desk. You notice actually having a white background is so much easier to see what's going on, and that's why sometimes we'll use like big sheets of white paper or something like this, so it's just easier to see your wire. So you can see probably what I mean there about getting the two from one side over the top of the two from the other, yeah. So just in case you're a little bit confused by that and you couldn't see it so well. So now what we're going to do is we're going to bind this together. We're going to put, let me show you, I'll tell you what, let's show you in coppers, it's so much easier to use, easier to see. So you can see what we've done there, that holds this handle together, and this is another alternative way of doing handles, but we've put some copper there. I've actually used there some recycled electrical cable, copper cable. So obviously copper as a decorative feature on these things looks gorgeous. So if you've got friends with a local electrician, or if you've got some old bits of copper wire at home, or if you can get hold of any, that's brilliant for this. What I'll try and do is I'll try and put some in the kit as well. We've got a fair chunk of it, it just needs recycling and stripping out. So okay, so what we're going to do is we take, and I've got about 4 inches, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be precise, but around about 4 inches. And what we're going to do when you bind this, as you can see, what we do is we actually wrap it round. But you don't want to start at one end and try wrapping it like that, because it really doesn't work very well at all. If you just part way down, twist it down so you've got a V like that, okay, you're going to find this a lot easier to work with. So then we put the V, we'll put that piece of wire there in between our two, and we're going to squish it together. Okay, now this is where the tools come in. So try and get that a little bit further over, so we're roughly kind of there. Now the tools that we use when we do wire are basically pliers. Now these are long nose pliers, and they've actually got lots and lots of different things they can do. If you can see, I'm not sure if you can see in there at all, but the edge of the pliers down there is serrated, so which gives it quite a lot of decent grip. So very, very useful for holding wire tightly. The only trouble is with this wire, because it's relatively soft, once you start squidging on there, you get that end up damaging the actual wire. So you have to be a bit careful. So here, just behind it, is a plain face as well. You see the face in there is quite plain, it's not serrated, and obviously it's the same on the other side as well. Now this is the point where, for doing what we're doing now, is brilliant, because it helps to squish the wire around. So we're trying to tighten the wire on the toasting fork wires as tight as possible, so they bind them into position so they don't come apart. So we don't want this to slip. Okay, so another thing that these long nose pliers do as well is you've actually got in there, you've got a cutter. You've got a cutting edge there, so potentially you can actually cut wire. It's a nice idea to have a separate pair of cutters anyway, and we have a sort of whole collection of different sorts. This one here is a more heavy duty for dealing with this thicker wire like this 2mm, and I haven't got a pair handy. We've got a smaller pair for the much thinner stuff, but in actual fact a big chunky pair like that does everything you need anyway. So okay, so what we're going to do to start off our binding, so to make sure that you've got this the right length, I think we're going to go for about there. You have to kind of decide yourself how far in you're going to need that. So we've folded the wire over, we're going to try and fold the wire a bit more, so you've got a loop there, and then with the pliers we're going to, on the top and the bottom, squeeze that down a little more like that. Okay, alright, now the fun starts. What we need to do is to fold this round. Now when we fold the wire round, this just takes a bit of practice, you need to use the pliers to squeeze the wire in. So we're squeezing it there, then you notice there you've got a kind of a V there. You can actually get your pliers on the top of that and push down, and that squeezes down on the wire and starts to make our first little turn. Yeah, so now if we put it sideways, you can see it's easier. Now, so squeeze it around there. If you can, use your fingers to bend it around a little bit more, and that's really cool. But when you bend it round, follow it up by squeezing round. See, I'm doing round and round and round and round and round, yeah, with the pliers. And if you can get the flat end, it actually gives you a little bit more leverage. See if I squish it around there as well. Yeah, so you're squishing it all the way around. Bish bosh bish. Okay, so that's that bit there. Now be careful, there's an end there that's sticking up, which is just a weeny bit on the sharp side, but we can file that down later. Sometimes you can actually file them down before you actually start using these pieces, which makes life easier. Then you've got the other bit. So with this one here, let's see if I can just squeeze the wire around and round and round. I'll bend it over so it's quite a length, then I'll squeeze it around a bit more and round, squeeze it around a bit more and round and a bit more, and just keep going with that until a good old squeeze. As I say, trying to use not the serrated parts of the wire, of the pliers, but the flat part. Yeah, if you can do that, fantastic. Then you get it nice, yeah, nice and strong there. See if I can squeeze that first one down. It's about trying to tidy up as you go. That's not too bad. It's still a bit. There we go. Make sure you're getting the camera shot. There you go. Okay, so we've got that binding like that. Yeah, so that's cool. So that's the start off. Now we could have done that in copper wire. Great thing about copper wire is that even though it's generally thicker than normal wire, it's actually very soft, so it's very easy to bend. Yeah, so for this situation, so there's not a lot of strength in it at all. I mean, going back to what we did in the first place with straightening these wires out, you can't do that with copper. That won't take it. Once you start spinning it to try and straighten it, it just snaps. It just won't take it. But for what we're going to be using decorative wise, that's going to work out quite well. Okay, so we've got our binding down there. Now what we need to do, we've got the other end where we've got our forks. So we're going to want to make a binding further up. So we've got basically the end of the handle kind of sorted out. We know how long our handle is going to be. Now, so all the way along here, we'll want to kind of pull our bits of wires together. Now, what you can do is, if you've just got a bit of rough stuff lying around, you can just help yourself by wrapping a little bit around. Let's alright, just for now, let's just take another piece of my 1.6 and bite that off. There we go. And then this is just for rough, alright, just to keep our bundle of wires together. Okay, well, whoops, that's where you've got to be careful of springing apart. So once again, let's twist those over. Oh, there we go. So I can probably do it with my fingers a bit. See, I've just put a little circle of it around there, just to hold them together, just to try and get them into a nice bunch. Whoops. Let's see if I can. Yes, let's tighten them up a bit more. There you go. You might find when you've done that, that initial binding you put in has now come a bit loose because the wires were sort of quite a way apart. If that's the case, then just go round again, tighten them around, squeeze them round, and try and follow how the wire's going. Yeah, don't just squeeze the whole thing flat like that, flat. If you kind of roll it along and squeeze it as you go, then it kind of takes more of any looseness out of it. That's pretty good anyway. So remember that actually working with wire, it's a bit like weight training, because with thin stuff it's quite easy to deal with, but as it gets thicker it does play on your muscles a bit, so after a bit you do get used to it, but it is literally like kind of mini weight training. Right, okay, so we want to put another binding like we've got, whoops, like we've got down there, up here, for to make sure we know just how the end of our shaft, as it were. So I'm going to get another piece of 1.6 ready, and this can be a decent one. As I say, the one in the middle there was just a bit of rough, just to hold on to it. So let's prepare, bonk, there you go, another piece, and we'll put a little bend ready in there, so that's ready to go. There we go. And then from the top, to make our forks, we'll want to save 6 inches from the end. So we're going to go 6 inches. It's there, around about there. Okay, so how does that compare to our other ones? Yeah, not far off, not far off. Okay, so roughly there. You can make them small if you want, but that'll do for now. Okay, so now what we're going to do, now I tell you what, let's do this. Now there's a little bit of detail here that's really useful, you'll find. When we put our first one in, we obviously wrapped it round a particular way, yeah, and you can probably see there the ending comes out there, so it's been, I've wrapped it round that way, which is clockwise. Well, it's clockwise as we look at it anyway. So if I could do the same thing at the other end, that's going to be really cool when it comes to us putting our decoration on here, because if you can make sure the wire that you wrap all the way around it down there, if it's all going in the same direction, it's so much easier to sort of butt up, and I'll show you what I mean when we get to it. So, oh, I forgot where we were now. Let's measure that up again. 6 inches. Yeah, about 6 inches. That's cool. So from there, so once again, now what have I done? So I've done it that way, so that's right. So it's going to go like that. So my little end is going to go south. So once again, we put the wire around, squeeze with the pliers, push it round as much as you can. Just remember that everything, I mean, this looks fairly sort of simplistic, but with everything wire-wise, just like with anything, it's practice. The more practice you do, the better it's going to come. There we go. Squeeze them more. Oh, that's the other door gone. It's a bit windy here today. You can't actually hear it, but it's pretty windy. The first slightly cooler day, because it's still so warm. Try not tapping the camera stand with the bottom of the wire. You can see that if you've got a bigger piece, you've got kind of more leverage to bend it around with your fingers, which is pretty useful. It just makes it easier. So if you do that, once again, just to follow it up, you can see how it kind of, as you squeeze it, the thing will follow round, it will bend round, which is a sheer sign, or it's a good sign that you're doing it right. So that big long one, let's follow that around. Need a little bit more bending. Once again, try not to let the bottom of this toasting fork tap against the camera stand and make all sorts of weird and wonderful noises. Squeeze, that's the other part we can do. This is a close binding I'm doing on this. So we want to make sure that the bindings are nice and close together, so you don't want them loose. So now and again, if yours have gone a bit far apart, put your pliers on the top and the bottom, just carefully squeeze the whole lot together. Then I'm just trying to push it a bit more. One more, nearly there. I'll have to shut that door in a minute. Right, that's that one. And then I'm going to turn that around so it's easier to get at the other one. There. Right, that's pretty cool. And once again, as I say, if you've got a small pair of pliers, not pliers, what do you call them? Files. Yeah, if you've got some small files, and you can get, B&Q did some lovely packs of 3 files, and they're only really cheap. But when you're putting a binding on like this, if you actually just finish the edges off, so they're not sharp edges, just round them off, it makes life a lot easier, because once you've got it in place, if you have got a scratchy bit to it, it's really difficult to get there just to sort of clean up. So now we have our shaft, yeah, all the way through. So the middle part here is ripe for decoration, then the bottom part down here is ready to start making our tines, and we can do all sorts of clever things with that. So that's how far we've got so far. Now there's a few things we can do. It doesn't matter really what order it goes in, it's just whatever you feel comfortable with. I'm going to make a start. I'm going to show you something a bit clever with the handle, because you can see here it's just a basic handle, there's nothing much there. If you get hold of it, you can squidge it, because even though it's 2mm wire and we've hardened it, it's still a bit bendy and squeezy. Alright, but what we'll do is we'll show you a technique, rather clever stuff actually this, about making this stronger, but also adding to the decor as well. Right, now I've just picked up some 1.25 from the other shed. I thought I might have some 1mm about, but no, I think Linda's nicked it all. I'm going to take a chunk of this. Let's just give you an idea what have I got, and I should put that. Take a foot of this, roughly. Okay. And I'll show you what we're going to do here. So actually, let me show you on one of the other ones. Now, we've done this in copper, so it's easy to see. Now, you notice that what I've done here is to make a binding round one part of this, and then pass the wire across, make a quick turn round, and then pass it back again diagonally, and then come across, then across, then across, and so on and so forth. So there's a bit of decorativeness there, that looks quite nice, but also it does something else, something very practical and really useful. The fact is now, by putting that there, I hold it now, I can't squeeze that in, whereas before, I mean, it would be very easy for me to bend that in, and you can see I can do it with my fingers with that. But this makes it much more handleable, as it were. That's good English. And if you do it with, and this is an alternative way of putting our, let's find there, of when we put the things together, what I've done here, you can see, is rather than have them flat together, I've turned the two pieces of wire at 90-degree angles. Well, I know not very good on this one, but just to give it, oh, let's see if I can find a better one. Must be one. Ah, there we go, a bit more like it. So here you can see, by having it at slightly different angles, I've now created a much more circular handle to it. I mean, it's square, but with these things here, they've given that degree of tightness around there. Yeah, all pretty cool stuff. So there's lots and lots of options for things you can do, and when you look at that, you start, which is what I did, you start getting all sorts of other little ideas about what you might do. So once again, the usual thing with wire work is, once you start building up techniques, you can start adapting those and becoming much creative. Yeah, these are, as I say, what we're doing here is just some basic techniques, but what I will do is to go on and show you how to make a wire basket. So when you get the coiling techniques as well, then there's no stopping you. Anyway, let's move on. So let's do a bit of this binding around here. So what we'll do, let's move and make some room. I'll start off up here. Okay, so we'll just twist, and because it's much thinner wire, it's much easier to work with. So let's see if I can move that. Once again, we're gonna twist the thing around, bind the thing around. You can do chunks of this with your fingers. I've still got it loose at the moment, so I haven't precisely decided exactly where I'm going to start from. Once again, oops, there. So get that first one tight, the first circle tight, and then it's easier. Shut up, dog. It's easier. There we go. Squeeze it together a little bit more. Squeeze this one down a little bit more. Let's try and push it from that way. You have to kind of, crossed over there, not a good idea. You just need to practice with it. Just practice wrapping a piece of wire around a couple of pieces of wire and just working with your pliers until you've got it exactly how you need it, and nice and tight. Let's try and get in there, just make it a little bit tighter. Just the first one, that's cool. But as I say, this is more slightly decorative. Right, so now I'm going to bring it across. In fact, I'm going to bring this one across at an angle. Let's wrap that one around. There we go. So I'm going to bring it over at an angle, spin it underneath like that. Let's move my hand out of the way, then you can see what's going on. Nearly there, still quite wide, so let me squeeze it up a bit. Squeeze it up a bit. Now, if I do that, that can take any slack off, because it was a little bit loose. Now I'll try and squeeze these together a bit more. There we go.
Oh, we could just come straight across it now. No, that's alright. It's a start. Right, now we've got that. Now we're going to come over at an angle. There you go. Let's do that. So we've got over at an angle. Wrap it underneath. Maybe bring your wires around to try and get it as close as possible. Oh, there you go. Let's come back over again. Now we've done that, let's give that a squeeze. Yeah, brilliant. So where are we going to go next? Let's go over there. All the time, if you can just bear in mind you've got your two thick bits of wire, and if you can just make sure you're keeping those together, then that's really cool. So we've got that there. As I say, sometimes with thinner pieces of wire like this, if you haven't quite got it tight enough, if you get hold of it and just waggle it backwards and forwards like that, that will help to tighten it up. It's weird how that happens, but it just does. And then we're going to go on. So I'm going to go diagonals with this. You can't have enough diagonals. A bit of wobbling again. There we go. Whoops. Straight across. Give it a quick tighten up. Ta-da! Now we're there. Same malarkey. Wrap it round. If you want, get hold of the wire with your pliers and waggle it around. And that makes it nice and tight, and especially if it's a bit hard work on the fingers. Oh, no, I've bent that slightly, but we can still do clever things. There we go. Little bends and things like that in this actually don't matter. They actually add to it, I always think. There we go. So I think I've got enough here now. There's not enough to get us back over the other side. So once I've brought that through like that, we're going to finish it off. So finish our binding nice and close. Bend it round again. Oh. Oh. And then just lummy neck. There we go. Excellent. Cool. So now you've got a nice little decorative piece there. Oh, there's a little sharp edge. Let's just see if I can squeeze that in. I should have got me pliers, and I'll show you those anyway. So there we go, a nice little decorative edge there, and you can see it's made that nice and strong. And as I say, you could do that with copper wire, all sorts of bits and pieces. Now I've decided what I'm going to do is to decorate this shaft before creating the prongs. It just ends up being a lot easier. Okay, so I've got some 1.6. I'm going to start off doing some 1.6. Then I'll probably use some copper. So I'm going to show you how I put it together. And also the point is that I showed you, like there you've got the close binding where the wires are sort of dead close together. Also we can do what I might call an open binding, where you've got a little bit more of a gap, and there's an open binding here. You see how the wires aren't dead close together like they are there. Yeah, so they're apart from being a little bit quicker to do, it just gives an option. There is a practical element to this as well, because if you are using these as toasting forks, then if you've done your science and your physics, you'll know that having things like this help to radiate the heat. So if it's getting a bit hot in your fire down this end, then having an open network of wires running up here helps to radiate the heat away. See, you know, I'm not just a pretty face. There are reasons for why we've got these sort of things. One thing about decorating with copper, and there's some old recycled copper here, and this is lovely because it's been outside I think for quite some time, and it's kind of gone faded and things. It's so much nicer than brand new copper, Okay, so that's really cool. You use copper as decorations on this, and if you're going to use it on the fire, do bear in mind that copper conducts heat better than iron, which means you're going to get some hot hands. So just do bear that in mind if you were considering putting copper all the way up here. Okay, so alright, getting back to our little bits and pieces here. So what I'm going to do is and I was talking about the way that the wire was going, yeah. You can see how I've been winding it, so over and over and over, going that way, yeah, if that makes sense. Very difficult to tell in this situation, but so what I'm going to do is let me bring out a piece of 1.2, no, it's 1.6, isn't it? Yeah, 1.6. That's the same as the binding, so just to show you how it's going to work. Alright, so we'll do a bit. So I don't want to spend a huge amount of time on the decoration of this when you want to get onto doing the prongs. Okay, so we've got that there. Right, so what I want to do with the binding, and once again we're going to start with extra edge, is I want to make sure that my binding here is wrapping around the same as the bindings that I put in place in the first place. So what I shall do, yeah, that's right. So it's going to go like that. I can do this fairly loosely first of all. Yeah, let's just try and get it a little bit tighter and closer together, especially. Yeah, and squidge it up. If I make sure I haven't got it majorly tight, then I can just slide this into position when we're ready. Yeah, it's still movable, that's lovely. And I'm now moving it down next to my binding wire that was there in the first place. Alright, now can you see, let's see if I can bring this up and show you. You can see that that wire and that wire is pretty darn close together, and in fact I've just overlapped it. Now the question is, can I turn it around enough to fit it in place? Let's have a go. I'll just move that out for a bit. There you go, excellent, got it. So now I'm going to twist it round. So you just got to get it, you just got to keep it loose enough till you can get these little details in place. Excellent, right, that's more like it. So now you can see, we're not quite there. Let's squidge that one down a bit. There. So I've managed to butt one end of wire up to the other. Yeah, so now we're there. It's a little bit squishy and loose, but I can, with my pliers, just start to tighten everything up a little bit around here. So we've got that in the right place to start with. There you go, that's not too bad. That's good. Right, now I'm just going to hold on to that while I just make another couple of turns. Right, there we go. There. And then what I can do, let's just try and turn it around. Stop shaking the camera. There you go. Right, so now I've got it fixed on. I've got it in an ideal place to be able to start fixing this on. So now I can start on, let's just give that one a squeeze there. It was one of the early ones. That's cool. Now, keeping it nice and tight between my fingers, I can just twist the whole shaft round, and you can see that's now loaded on quite nicely. And it's just a bit of practice as you turn this round and keep the angle of the wire the same to make sure that the gap between the twists are the same all the way up. Yeah, you can see how that's happening like that. Okay, right, What I'm going to do, I'm going to now fast forward until we could get to the end of this bit of wire. Okay, so now we've wound that full length on, and what did I use? I probably used about a couple of foot there, I'm guessing, of my 1.6 wire, and I've now got a binding, a tight binding in the middle of it. So now let's bung a bit of copper on. Yeah. Let's see. Let's cut. I've got here about 2 foot. Let's cut about a foot off. That's good. Oh, some nice verdigris on there as well. Okay, so same idea. Well, let's see if I can do this a little bit closer for you to see it. So first of all, because that's going to go that way round. See that? Yeah. Okay, cool. So what I'll do is, and it's so much softer, so it's easier to deal with. Famous last words. Never work with children, animals, or copper wire. No, it's okay. It's pretty cool stuff. You just got to know your limitations with some of this wire. Right, okay. Now here's a classic. So I haven't quite. Done it a little bit too tight. Yeah, so it'd be a bit of a beggar trying to get that around. That's not going to work. So if that's the case, then don't be afraid just to snip some stuff off to kind of adjust it, if you like. Oh, there you go. Right, and then I'll stop scratching the old camera stand with the wire. Right, okay, let's bring that into position. See if I can get that to line up. Yeah, okay, that's there. See how that's coming down there? Oh. Just about. Right, I can hold it with the pliers while I make another turn. But I'm going to make this a tight bind. First of all, let's squeeze that down a bit more. Cool. There we go, so that's a little tight bind, and then I'm going to open the binding up a little bit and do a little bit of what I did just now. I'm just feeling I'm rushing this a little bit because I want to get onto the main bits, so I don't want you to get too stuck on one piece, but you'll find your own way. As I say, it is practice. I can just about with copper wire do it quite easily with my fingers. It's a bit uneven. Greeny bit. Squeeze that tight a bit. Copper especially, it being much softer, is prone to getting scratched and squeezed and damaged by the pliers, so if you can really take your life a little bit easier when you're handling it with the pliers. Right, let's squeeze that around there. Now I know what I'm going to do. There we go. Dun, 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 dun. It's just gone a bit beyond it. It's just one of these, just trying to butt up the ends is one of these little attentions to detail which is just really nice, but sometimes it just gets a bit too complicated. Just difficult. You just have to gauge it right. Anyway, but there we are. So we've got some decor on our shaft. It makes it a bit thicker and makes it a little bit more tighter as well, a bit stronger. Yeah, so what it means is always, you know, apart from being a decoration, just like the handle we were talking about, apart from being a decoration, it actually adds to the strength of the thing. Now, the last part we've got really is sorting the prongs out. Now, what I've done with some of these that we've made, as you can see, there's some little special antique twists or what have you, some sort of ornamental twisty bits in there that we've done over the years. Well, let's keep it fairly simple for the moment, yes, because it's just enough just trying to get the thing straight. Now, before we start this, what you need to do is to make sure, because you can see we've got the flat part there. Do not make the mistake that I've done in the past of when you start bringing out the prongs, not having them on the same plane, if you like, as the handle, yeah? Because it's a bit embarrassing. You can get around it if you do it wrong, you can sort of twist it around, but just try and keep it nice and steady. So now, what we've got to do, whoops, says he kicking the camera stand again, you'll notice that certain wires will come out on the edge, yeah, and some wires will be in the middle. If you choose carefully the ones that are near the edge, then it's easier to create your tongs. So making sure that I've got it in line, I'm going in line with the handle, yeah. I'm going to take this one here, which is just about in line, and let me just turn it sideways now so you can see. I'm going to pull it all the way until it's 90 degrees with the shaft. Then turning over, I'll get the next one which is closest to this side, which is that one, and do the same thing with that. Pull it all the way out until it's 90 degrees, so at a right angle, okay? So if you look there, you can see they're pretty straight, and of course we've got those in the middle. Now, you've got to bear in mind that the ones on the outside, when we turn them up, are going to end up being smaller than the inside, so there's going to be a little bit of adjustment going on. It all depends how far out we come with these now, okay? What I'd suggest we do with the other two is to bring them halfway, so about a 45-degree angle to these two. So let's, and you'd be surprised what you can get used to with your eyes. You can kind of guess it. So that's pretty darn close anyway. So we'll turn it over and see if we can create the same on there. What you're after is symmetry. Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. Now, okay, so now you've got that there, it's all about how long you want your prongs to be, yeah, and so on and so forth. What we'll do is, now what I need now is my chunky pliers, just to see what, see if I can find them. Actually, no, of course, I can do it with these. Of course I can do it with these, yeah. I'm just cheating. Right, okay, so let's take the middle two. And what we're going to do is, we've got that angle coming out there, then we need to decide when we're going to straighten them off. So I'm going to go for, and I'm doing this all by eye. As I say, you can do it whatever you can kind of work it out. You can use a protractor if you want and try and do the angles. Alright, so that's one like that. I'll turn it over just because it's easier just to kind of gauge. Right, junk, that's pretty darn close. Alright, yes, they will be out at the top, that's not a problem. Okay, so that's our two middle ones done there. Now we've got to decide how close the other ones are going to be. Bearing in mind these arms are going to be shorter than those, they will be shorter. Okay, so what we'll do is, I normally go, for some reason with these ones, I normally go about 4 centimetres, which would make it there. Let's just go a bit before that. I'll actually measure them just to be nice. I'm going to go 1 inch. See, I love doing this mixture of metric and imperial. It's just a case of what works at a certain time. Right, I'm going to go 1, so I'm going to put my finger there, and then I'm going to put my pliers there, and we'll twist that one up, trying to make sure that you keep the other one nice and flat. Whoops, there you go. Sometimes you haven't quite got it right, you can just bend them right forward, turn it round, same idea. Let's go for a measurement. So we're talking about 1 inch, so 1 inch is about there. That's going to come up to that. Got it. Twisting round, once again trying not to, there you go. Okay, so we've got our basic prongs. That's cool. That's alright. So it's a start. Yeah. The main thing is being able just to sort of create them first of all and get them all right in the first place. So that's great. Now we've got a few options. First of all, I think we need to make sure that we've got them dead even across the board. So, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to use me normal cutters just to prove that you don't need big chunky ones, although it is lovely if you've got a collection of bits and pieces. And as I say, you don't have to buy brand new. You often find a lot of what you really need out in the shed, yeah, or in toolboxes. A lot of stuff gets forgotten about. So click that one off. That's pretty darn even. And then this one, oh, let me look across. Yeah, okay. Alright, so that's pretty cool. So we've got nice even prongs. They're probably just slightly angled up, but that's alright. Now you've got some more options as well. If you are going to use these for toasting on and things like this, you might consider getting your file and sharpening the edges. That's one thing you can do. Another thing you can also do, which is quite doody, is to get a nice big heavy hammer and then rest the edges of these, the last centimetre, on a heavy metal part. I've got a vise, you could put it on the back of the vise and just bang them, and because it is so soft they'll go kind of flat and sort of spade shaped, and they'd be quite sharp that way. Once again, you have to be a bit careful sharpness wise. You don't need to sharpen them up obviously, but that's the basic idea for those. Okay, so we're just about there. There's our toasting fork, bit of decoration on it, nice little decoration with a handle, keeps it nice and tight, and you've learnt a few techniques about wire work. Okay, and well, this will probably give you a few ideas about different things you can make for yourself as well. So if you look on our website lovewire.co.uk or on our Facebook page of Lovewire, you'll find details about buying the kit to make this as well, and anything else you need, just get in contact and we'll help you out with it. Okay, as I say, there's an option regarding the kit if you want us to prepare the main parts of the wire for you first of all, so you haven't got to worry about trying to sort of twist the wire in the drill. We could sort that out for you anyway. Okay, so there'll be two options on the website. So until next time, this is Dave saying bye bye.